Right after Christmas this year, my partner and I left New York City to go on a nearly 2-month-long adventure in French Canada. From December 30th to Valentine's Day, we're going to be exploring Quebec City and Montreal, and we're just going to be getting some much needed rest. After this trip, my partner's going on tour in Europe, and we're both moving down south to a new city. So it's really exciting, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of change coming, and I've decided to take you guys with me. Originally, when I set out to make this video, I thought that it was just going to be a project vlog for the sweater that I cast on at the start of our trip on day one, but as I started filming it and I started editing it, it kind of turned into a travel vlog. So I hope that you guys enjoy that kind of thing. It was definitely a lot of fun to put together, and now I'm just really excited to have these videos of my trip. Before we get into it, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of info on the sweater that I'm going to be focusing on throughout this video. So the sweater that I decided to make my trip cast on is the Tulip Loop Rollneck by Other Loops. This is a sweater that I've had in my Ravelry queue for months now, and I've always known that it was going to require quite a bit of my attention, so I thought, what better time to set out to make this sweater than when I have nothing but time and nothing but attention to give it for 2 whole months. So as you'll see, I made my gauge swatch the day before we left for this trip, and I cast it on day 1. Or I guess day 0. My dream goal is to have this sweater cast off by the time that we leave on February 14th, but I'm going to be kind of loosey-goosey on that. Going into this trip, my hope was that I would be able to take this time to learn how to knit socks. That's just something that I've always wanted to learn to do, and since I have this concentrated time where I have nothing but opportunities to knit and time to learn new techniques and fail and redo and etc., I decided that now is the perfect time to learn how to knit some socks. I also brought with me a great stash busting project that's a chunky knit cardigan that I'm really excited about. So between those 2 other patterns and also allowing myself room to go to yarn stores in the city and get inspired and just, the inspiration that can strike in a 6-week period, I'm gonna be kind of loose on that deadline for the Tulip Loop sweater because I want to allow myself the freedom to have this knitting on this trip still feel relaxing and fun and not like I'm on a strict deadline or something. I'm literally in a winter wonderland here in Canada in the dead of winter, so I think I'm going to have some inspiration strike me while I'm here, and I want to allow it the room to do so. But also it would be really cool if I could finish this whole elaborate cable knit turtleneck during my trip. So we'll see. I'm nearly done yapping here, but in all of this footage that you're about to see from this vlog, I didn't even once mention what yarn I'm using, lol. So I'm gonna tell you that now. The main wool for this sweater I picked up while I was in Rhinebeck this year, and y'all, it is so soft. I love this yarn. It's kind of hard to tell. The lighting in this Airbnb is pretty yellow, but this is like a very celery colored green, which is one of my favorite tones of green. I'm a green girl. This is from the Flying Fibers Yarn Company. This is their Yorkshire Medley yarn. It's 100% British wool, and I believe it's like a DK to Aran weight yarn. Put a pin in that, we'll get back to it. The yarn that I'm holding it with is Hobie Alpaca Blaze, and this is in color 19. This is like a very similar green color to the other yarn, but this is a bit more dark and a bit more of like a Kelly green, army green. Is Kelly green army green? I don't know. This is a bit more of an army green. So on the weight of this yarn, I talk about this a bit in the video, but I would not necessarily recommend this combo for this sweater if your goal is to make it look exactly like the sample photos and if you want to be really true to pattern. I talk about it more as the video goes on, so I won't get into it here, but just so you know for now, this yarn's actually a bit thinner than what the pattern calls for. It's actually perfect for me and for my purposes of wearing this sweater, and I'm loving how this pair works up, but just to say, this is straying from the pattern and the design just a wee bit. Okay, that is enough talking. Let's get on with the adventure. Okay, it is December 29th. It is the night before we leave for our Canada trip. We are driving tomorrow for 8 hours to get there. We're leaving from New York, and then we're going straight to Quebec City by car. So I'm hoping to get started on this sweater in the car tomorrow, but regardless, I decided that tonight before we leave, now that I have my yarn that I need for this project with me, I would make a gauge swatch. So that's exactly what I did. I swatched just as the pattern recommends, so I used the recommended needle size, and I did my swatch with the ribbing for this pattern, so that's knit 3 purl 2. So it's pretty straightforward what it looks like. I also normally need to size my needles down, but the last sweater that I made, I sized down my needles and my gauge was way off. It was way too small. So I suspect that I am becoming a tighter knitter. After posting on my Instagram about that last sweater that I made that the first draft came out too small for, someone suggested that in the future when I make gauge swatches for sweaters that are knit in the round, that I make my swatch in the round. So that's what I did here. That's why it looks kind of crazy. This is my first time swatching in the round and I think I did it right. I don't know. I fear that it might be a bit too tight, but I think it'll still help me figure out if I'm on the right track here. So it's 3:30 right now. I'm going to go ahead and wet block this and hope that it's even somewhat dry by the time that we leave for our road trip tomorrow so that I know what needles I need to be knitting with. But once this is blocked and at least mostly dry, I'll have a better idea of how I'm knitting this sweater. So hopefully I'll be able to start when I'm in the car. If not, I have another project that's like a chunky cardigan that I could probably get a lot of progress on in the car anyway, so if I can't start this tomorrow, it's not the end of the world, but that is my goal. So I'll check in with you all when I officially cast the sweater on. Good morning, everyone. We are officially in Quebec City today. We got in last night and did a little night around the town, and then today we're gonna go get some coffee and we're gonna go walk around and see some of the sights. So I'm gonna try and bring you guys along with some of that. I think it'd be kind of fun to get some footage. But I wanted to update you on my sweater. So I made some good progress in the car, even though I kept getting distracted and putting it down. So I definitely didn't work on it for like the whole drive or whatever, but I made a lot of progress on it, and I have already done a few cable repeats on some of the smaller cables on the side, and I've already done one of the tulip cables, which was the part of this pattern that I was really intimidated by, but then once I did it, I realized like it's super easy, which I feel like is just kind of like a common thing with cables for me. It's like they look really intimidating, and then every time I do them, I'm like, okay, this is pretty straightforward. Like if you can follow directions, you can cable. So in terms of gauge, because that was the thing I wasn't so sure on when I last checked in with y'all, I discovered that I'm definitely using a base yarn that is not thick enough. So when I was buying yarn for this project, I was looking at the Ravelry like summary, like those little cards that they do before you buy the pattern, because I hadn't bought the pattern yet. And in that description, it says Aran weight yarn. And I was at Rhinebeck trying to buy the yarn for this sweater, and I should have just bought the pattern to see what it actually was saying. So lesson learned, I'm just going to do that in the future. But I definitely should have known something was off, because it was saying that it needed Aran weight yarn, and all the vendors who were looking at the description were like, that's not an Aran weight sweater. Like the needle size and the gauge that it's talking about, that's not Aran weight. Anyway, long story short, I bought DK yarn and planned to hold it with mohair to make Aran weight, but what the pattern actually called for was a worsted weight yarn or an Aran weight yarn held with mohair. So I think that's why my gauge seemed totally off before. I mean, my gauge was off anyway, like those needles were too big, but also there was like a lot of gaps in the stitches and stuff, and it was like a very airy swatch, and the sweater is supposed to be really dense. I sized down my needles and I'm closer to gauge now. It's still actually too long, but the stitch count is pretty accurate, so that's fine. I was thinking about it, and because after this trip, my boyfriend and I are moving to a warmer climate, I think I'm gonna get actually more use out of this sweater if it's not so dense and if there is some space and some breadth in between the stitches. So It looks fine, and I think that that drapiness of the fabric is going to make it so that I get more wear out of it in the future. So kind of a Bob Ross happy little accident there. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. I'm loving the pattern so far. It's really fun. You like both have to pay a lot of attention to it, and it's just like pretty repetitive once you get going. So definitely really excited to join in the round and be able to just like go on this thing. But I'm gonna finish getting ready and I'll check in with you guys when I have another update. So today I'm wearing a top that I knit on my Centro earlier this year, and then just this plain wool stockinette scarf that I knit a few years ago. I wear this like all the time. It's my warmest scarf. And then I've been wearing my Savannah convertible beanie and cowl as a beanie today. This has been keeping me super warm. I'm showing you this now because when I put on my winter jacket, you can't see any of this. So that's what I'm wearing. Okay, I'm just gonna get cozy. Let me move this yarn. So it's the 1st, it's New Year's Day. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope your 2025 is filled with community and love and things that bring you joy. And I hope that it brings safety and health and happiness to you and everyone in your life. But more importantly, let's get an update on my trip and on my sweater. Canada has been amazing so far. I've been eating a lot of popcorn. If you guys have been to Quebec City, you may know Mary's popcorn shop. My boyfriend and I got a huge bag of chocolate popcorn the first day we were here, and I've basically been eating it nonstop the whole trip. So, got a lot of popcorn here, so I'm not mad about that. We've eaten some amazing food for dinner tonight. We had some ramen. Last night we had shawarma. We went to this local fromagerie and got some charcuterie to have yesterday, and we just kind of been snacking on that in our Airbnb as well. So, I don't know, we've just been eating really good, which is always a recipe for a great vacation in my book. But yeah, it's just been really nice. The weather's been kind of atrocious since we've been here. It's been wintry mixing, and like today it was basically just a huge slush storm. So that was a little bit rough. But otherwise, it's just been amazing. It's been really nice and very beautiful, and all the people here have been fantastic. So I've been loving my time in Quebec City. It was so nice to ring in the new year here. It's just so romantic and so fun. So just to recap on the progress I've made on the sweater so far, I cast this on the 30th. And so I've now been working on this for 3 days. I'm making some good progress down through the back yoke, and I'm actually only a few rows away from working on the armhole increases, which is really exciting. Once I get through those armhole increases, that's when I then start picking up for the front. And then, of course, once I'm done with the front, then I'm just going to join in the round and be able to work in the round for the rest of the body. So that's going to be exciting. This is knitting up a lot quicker than I thought it was going to. Originally, I picked this pattern thinking that this would be the kind of sweater that would take me forever to knit up. I feel like with knitting, I'll see patterns and I'll think that they're super intimidating and that I don't have the skills for them. And then I try those new skills and then I find out that there's really nothing that intense or intimidating about them. I'm gonna let my dog play with this toy, so you may hear squeaking. When I originally picked this sweater pattern out, I thought that this pattern was gonna take me forever. I've actually said in a previous video on this channel that I thought that this sweater was gonna take me like a year to knit. So when I brought it on this trip, my thing was, okay, let me make a crazy goal of seeing if I can finish this sweater during my trip in Canada. And of course, we're still in early days, but with how quickly this is knitting up so far, I'm actually thinking that that might be a pretty likely goal. So anyway, that's all I had to say. I'm super happy with my progress so far. I'm having such a great time on my trip. I haven't been working on any of my other whips yet, but I'm sure that that's going to happen in the days to come. My big goals for this trip is to make my first pair of socks. So that'll be coming soon, and I'll let you guys know when I start those. And I also have a chunky stockinette cardigan pattern that I'm working on right now, and I think that'll be a nice break from this sweater, which is a bit more complicated and I need to pay more attention to. So that's what's going on right now. I will check in with you guys when I have another update. I think my pets are starting to hit their witching hour, so I should probably sign off. Okay, it's officially January 2nd, which is my boyfriend's birthday, so that's gonna be fun. We're gonna be walking around. We're gonna go to a few different spots for different meals today. We're gonna go to a diner this morning, and then hopefully we're gonna be able to check out some of the local cathedrals and maybe some libraries, and then I'm hoping that we can get some shopping done, but we'll see. But I wanted to show you guys my outfit before we head out the door. So it's kind of an awkward angle. It's not really a good spot to perch my camera in this Airbnb, but I'm wearing my cloud blouse by Petite Knit today. Obviously, I'm wearing heat tech under it. And then I'm wearing this belt and some black cargo pants and some like thick hiking socks. I think I've been wearing about 3 hand knits a day since we've been here, which has been really fun. That was my goal, was to every day wear at least one thing that I made. So today I'm wearing the cloud blouse, obviously, and then I'm also wearing this hood that I made on my Centro last year. And then I'm also wearing this scarf that I hand knit like in college. So knit a few rows on my Tulip Loop sweater this morning. I'm really excited about the progress that I'm making on it. But today I'm not going to focus so much on knitting. I'm going to focus on exploring Quebec City. So come with me. Okay, I have to be kind of quiet because my partner's napping right now. Oh my gosh, I just finished the back piece. I am blown away. Like, I am so obsessed with how this is looking. I cannot believe I've made this much progress this quickly. Truly not what I was expecting. I'm so excited. One thing I would be remiss not to mention, my cat has his own ideas for how my camera should be set up. It would not be a project of mine if there was not a mistake. It would also not be a project of mine if there was not a mistake that I was willing to just move past and not redo. In this case, I didn't even notice until truly the second to last row. Like truly like 5 or 10 minutes ago, I was looking at this and I was like, huh, that center triangle looks a little funky. Partner, what? I've just been doing my slip knits wrong. Gosh. So basically the way that you decrease for this center triangle here on this back piece is at the front end of the panel, like on the rightmost side, you knit 2 together. And then on the leftmost side, you slip knit. And I don't know, I just have been doing slip knit wrong, I guess, because I was looking at it and I was like, this just doesn't look very neat. Like, it looks fine and literally no one's gonna notice. I'll get to that in a second. But it looks fine, but if you look closely, both sides just look like 2 have been knit together, and it's not that big of a deal, but I just was doing slip knit wrong the whole time. So I don't know, maybe it's not obvious, like maybe some people would go back. I am not going to go back and redo this. I think it still looks great. But if you look closely, and I'll show you a close-up, you can see because you would do the decreases and then a knit stitch on the outside of that decrease, on one side of the triangle, the knit stitches on the side look really neat, and on one side they look really blown out and like just kind of sloppy, and I think that that must be the side that I did the slip knit on. I'm not sure. Either way, they don't look the same, and again, it really like overall isn't that big of a deal, but visually right now, at least unblocked, I can tell looking close up. But if anyone is standing close enough to me to where they can see like how the stitches are joined together, they are too close. So maybe, if anything, this sweater will just help people stay a safe distance from me in public. Classic Addie, glaring, long-running error, but it's one I'm willing to live with, and I'm going to. And it does not detract from how happy I am with how this is looking. I'm super excited about this. Only other concern is that to the touch, I'm worried that the alpaca blaze is not going to be very soft. The wool that I'm using is very soft to the touch, and as I'm feeling it against my skin, it's a bit scratchy. I don't really mind a scratchy sweater, but I'm just noticing it, and maybe that'll go away with blocking. But wow, I'm just so proud of myself. I think now that these stitches are held, I'm going to take a bit of a break from this sweater, not too much so I lose momentum, but I'm going to take a bit of a pause from this, and I think tonight I'm going to work on my chunky cardigan, and then I'll get back to this either tomorrow or the next day. I don't want to take too long of a break because I tend to procrastinate doing left and right fronts of sweaters. I don't know why, that's just always the part of the sweater that like once I get through the back yoke or back panel or whatever, I just like never want to do the front pieces. That tends to be how things go to the whip graveyard for me. So I want to make sure that I don't lose steam, but I do just want to give myself a break and work on something a bit thicker and a bit quicker going. That being said, I do think I'm going to wrap up my vlog here. I'm going to check back in with you guys, for me tomorrow, but for you guys next week. Hopefully I'll have a podcast episode out on this channel in between the 2 vlogs. So be sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss those videos. And even if I don't get a podcast episode out to you guys before next week, be sure to follow me on Instagram because that's how you'll stay day to day up to date with my whips and with my trip and all that fun stuff. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I am so excited about all this. I'm so excited about my trip. I've been having so much fun filming this vlog, so please let me know what you thought of it down below. And until I see you in the next one, please be sure to drink some water, stretch your wrists, and please purl responsibly. See y'all next week. Bye!